All right, here we are. Oh my, that NFL draft is approaching so quickly, and we are jonesing for football. We are jonesing for the NFL draft. I am Bill Jones, joined by Cody Winstead from the NFL Network, who's going to be very, very busy, already has been busy preparing for the draft as a producer for all those NFL draft shows on the NFL Network. My big green notebook is filling up by the hour. And look at all that. Look at all that. It's just chock full of information there, young Cody. And we've got some big things to get into today because it gets more and more interesting every single day, doesn't it?
Oh, you know it. Bill Jones, this is like our Super Bowl, right? Like a lot of people's Super Bowl is the Super Bowl. For us, draft nuts, this is what we get into. We're 2 weeks from the big day, less than 2 weeks from the big day. Tons of questions.
Let me say this. My wife last night said, "When is this draft?"
There you go.
She's getting so tired of me with my big green notebook, just writing down notes, looking at videos and all this stuff. I mean,
you're probably taking it to dinner, like at the dinner table. You've got a couple iPads going.
She's decided to go out of town with friends next weekend. And so, man, I'm going to be so much in the lab next weekend.
Love it. Yeah, you're watching like Kadarius Toney highlights over lunch. That's probably it.
No, I'll be deep in the draft. I'll be in the third day people by next weekend. Okay. You know, because we're digging through this. We're digging in the gold mine here, the green notebook, trying to find third day wonders by then. All right.
I've got a few sleepers that I've already started, so we'll have some stuff for next week ready to roll. But Bill Jones, on this episode of Jonesing for Football, we're going to do some compelling questions. We know it starts with the Niners at 3. There's a ton of compelling questions. Falcons at 4, the quarterbacks, everyone's debating those guys. There are a couple teams with multiple first round picks, Jags, Dolphins, Jets. So much intrigue. Bill Jones, give me a compelling question, and then I've got one or a couple myself.
All right. Here is a number one compelling question that I have. Okay, of the top tier quarterbacks, those 5 quarterbacks that have been mentioned going in the top 10, which will be the last quarterback taken in this draft? What do you think, Cody?
I mean, that if you know that, then you kind of figure out how the top 10 is going to go, right?
You get the whole Rubik's Cube figured out, right?
That's exactly right. I think we're
okay. So Trevor Lawrence is first.
Yeah.
Okay. We're agreed. Zach Wilson is second to the Jets.
Yep.
Now the third pick is San Francisco. Obviously, it's a quarterback, and so we figure that one out. Then you're down to the last 2.
Yeah.
So the end question is going to be which will be the last quarterback taken.
Sure.
But to get there, you kind of have to figure out San Francisco.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Who is it? Who are you picking? Who's going to be the last QB? What's your guess?
You know, after Justin Fields had his pro day a second pro day this past week, and the Niners have a presence there, then the scuttlebutt starts that, oh no, they're going with Fields instead of Mac Jones. I think they're going Mac Jones, I think, but I can be swayed differently. What do you think?
Yeah. I actually think they're going to go Justin Fields. I think he's going to go number 3, and that will leave the Falcons at number 4 as kind of the intriguing pick. And does Atlanta go quarterback, or do they look for a trade? Maybe Denver moves up. And again, we talked about these teams: New England, Chicago, Washington, possibly moving up to number 4 to get the 4th quarterback. And then that leaves, like you mentioned, your big question: who goes last? I know who it is. I already know who's going last.
Oh, you do?
I know which QB of the big 5 is going last. I have no doubt.
Would you like to tell the rest of the class?
Sure. I have no doubt Trey Lance is going to be the 5th quarterback selected here. And
I concur. I think so too. Why do you say that?
Well, I thought that would be the case when I watch the tape of Trey Lance, he's just, he seems like a good prospect. He's still young though. He's 20. I don't know how you could be sure enough in Trey Lance to say, this is a guy I'm taking in the top 10. To me, he's a mid to late first rounder at best. And maybe next year, if he comes back, he could, prove that he's a top 5 pick.
So your recommendation to him right now is to go back and go join your North Dakota State team and try again next year.
Well, maybe that's fine. But I just think from a team standpoint, how can you tell your owner, hey, we're certain about this guy, when I just don't think the resume is there for.
No way. I mean, he's thrown 318 passes in his collegiate career. That's right. His entire career consists of 318 passes. I'm looking at this going, where's this coming from? I think this is a classic case. I mean, you can see the potential there. Yep. Who does he remind you of? Who does he look like when he's playing? And the way they're using him as a college quarterback, which is a lot of zone read stuff.
Let me think about it. Who are you taking?
He looks like Dak Prescott. I mean, he looks like, his build and everything, and even the way he's used with the run, he's not going to run like that in the NFL. He has that ability to at times run, but he's not going to run like what North Dakota State is using him. I mean, he ran for 1,100 yards and 14 touchdowns the one year that he did have a full season. And granted, it was a 16-game season. But I mean, to me, he looks a lot like Dak Prescott. Yeah. And Dak Prescott was a 4th-round draft pick. And if we redid the draft, Dak Prescott would be right there at the top of the draft. But we didn't know that when Dak Prescott came out. We don't know that about Trey Lance. And so any GM who stands on the table and tells his owner, this is the guy we need to take, he's got to be very sure about his abilities to predict the future with a quarterback.
Right. There's too much uncertainty in my eyes. And if you go back and watch the only game he played this season, we've talked about this on previous editions. It was borderline brutal throwing the football. And you kind of give him a little bit of leeway because it was the first game of the season and he had new receivers, but they were playing Central Arkansas and he's missing guys left and right. And I'm not saying next week, the following week, he wouldn't have been better, and the following month he wouldn't have been better had they been able to play games. But just from a tape standpoint, I mean, it's obvious to me that Trey should be the last of the 5.
And let me say this, the comparison with Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott had, even though Lance had the championship season, is one year that he played at the FCS level, Dak Prescott had a lot more skins on the wall as a collegiate quarterback than what Trey Lance has, a lot more experience. And the thing that Prescott has that people didn't realize that he had was a work ethic and ability to improve in the passing game and work on his footwork and so forth, to the point that now he has improved his accuracy as a passer. And so if Trey Lance has that about him, where he has that kind of work, the same kind of work ethic that Dak Prescott has, then he can become that type of quarterback. But we don't know that. The other part of it is that sets Dak apart is his leadership. I don't know that about Trey Lance. He may be a great leader. He seems to be a very mature guy, whatever. But I mean, Dak is off the charts as far as leadership goes. Yeah. All right, let's go. Compelling question number 2. What do you got?
All right, I have this one, Bill Jones. The question is, which team is going to end up with the biggest matchup nightmare in the draft? And that guy is Kyle Pitts, tight end from Florida. We've been doing these Jonesing for footballs for about going on a month now, and we haven't really mentioned Kyle Pitts. So here we go. 6'6", 245, ran a 4.44 at the Gators Pro Day, 33.5-inch vertical, 10-9 broad jump, 22 bench reps, freak of nature. And I thought this was maybe the most impressive measurement. Saw this from Pro Football Focus. Pitts has a longer wingspan than any wide receiver or tight end in the NFL in the last 20 years. It's almost 84-inch wingspan. How about that? His time at Florida was spectacular. Unanimous All-American, winner of the Mackey Award, which goes to the top tight end. He averaged about 100 yards receiving per game. He had 12 touchdowns in 8 games. And so I think this guy is basically the next Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Darren Waller, if not better than these guys. So the question becomes now, where does he land, right? It seems like most mock drafts have him at Cincinnati at number 5, Miami 6, Detroit 7. Those all seem to make some good sense there. And especially with the quarterbacks that those teams have, Bill Jones, I don't think it's a stretch to say Kyle Pitts could save Tua Tagovailoa's career, or he could get to his career going in the right direction. One dude like this that could change the trajectory of an offense. Joe Burrow needs somebody like him as well. Jared Goff definitely in Detroit needs someone that they can kind of plan on throwing to all the time, have someone take double teams and basically open up defenses. So I think Kyle Pitts, whoever gets him, is going to be in really good shape. And like I said, he might single-handedly change the trajectory of a team's offense.
Okay. So we've talked about who's at the top 3 picks or quarterbacks. You know, I did a Zoom with Dane Brugler this past week. And one of the debates in Dallas is because Jerry Jones apparently has come out and said that he loves Kyle Pitts. And one of the debates here in Dallas is, would Jerry Jones take at number 10 Kyle Pitts if he were available, an offensive player when there's so many needs on defense? And Dave stopped me in my tracks, and I said, I'll answer that question real simply. He ain't getting to 10.
That's right.
He's not going to be there at 10. And so I'm sitting there going, if people are talking about this is a future Hall of Famer, Dane's got him as the 2nd ranked player on his board behind Trevor Lawrence, and so many people have him ranked that high. Is he getting to 5? What about Atlanta at 4? The decision that Atlanta makes, and now they'll be fielding perhaps some trade offers as well. But if he can do that for Cincinnati's offense, if he can do that for Miami's offense, what about for Matt Ryan in Atlanta? When you look at their depth chart at tight end with Hayden Hurst and Jaden Graham and Lee Smith, who they signed in free agency or came over to trade from Buffalo this offseason. I mean, Kyle Pitts in that offense, you talk about changing an offense, it might change the fortunes of the Atlanta Falcons right there.
For sure. And even when Julio, let's say Julio Jones, who's been a terrific player, probably a Hall of Famer, he's got another year or two probably at an elite level. And then it'll be Kyle Pitts and it'll be Calvin Ridley from there in Atlanta. So to
answer your question, how are we answering the question? I'm answering Atlanta. Atlanta takes Kyle Pitts unless they trade out. And if they trade out, they're not going. All right, I should come back on that. If they're taking Kyle Pitts, they're taking Kyle Pitts. If they think Kyle Pitts is that good that they're going to take him, then they're not going to wait around and unless Cincinnati's trading up, unless they got the next pick. but they're not going to trade with Cincinnati because Cincinnati probably wants it. Huh?
They do the Chicago Bears and move up one.
They do one spot.
Right, exactly. I say he's going to Miami at number 6. And then listen to this. Let's say Pitts goes to Miami. They've got Mike Gesicki, who's a nice tight end already. They've got Devontae Parker, who's I think an underrated receiver. I believe they added Will Fuller in free agency as well. They did. And then you add Kyle Pitts. Okay, Tua. Pressure's on
You're
Tua
such a
right
Tua
there.
guy. You're wanting. This is wishful thinking. Cody was so much on the Tua bandwagon last year. He was his guy, and so as Cody puts his little mock draft together, he's finagling it here to make sure that Tua has as many weapons as possible. I see where you're going with this.
Well, I think it just makes sense because the Dolphins are a team on the rise, and Brian Flores, if they had an elite quarterback right now, you would look at Miami as a Super Bowl contender. So the question for them is, can Tua play or not? Give him all the weapons, and you find out this season, and you're probably moving on from Tua if he can't play next year.
But if Kyle Pitts is what everyone says he is, then he can do the same for Matt Ryan at Atlanta and Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, which pick ahead of Miami. All right.
For sure.
We got another compelling question coming at you. Here comes the next compelling question. What do you think, young Cody, is the deepest position group in this draft? The deepest position group. So I'm talking obviously, there are more wide receivers taken every year, more cornerbacks taken every year. But as far as real quality goes, let's say in the top 100 picks or so, which position group do you think is the deepest for what we ordinarily see out of that position group?
Yeah, you mentioned it. I think it's wide receiver. And I'm with you that wide receivers, especially recently, there tend to be a lot of them going off the board because they're having early success. And obviously, teams are going 3 and 4 wideouts all the time now. But this year, I think, is special. We know Jamar Chase. We know Waddle. We know Devontae Smith. Those guys are all possible top 10 picks. But there are a bunch of other guys in the first round that people really aren't talking about, and we probably should. Rondale Moore. You know I love Rondale Moore. Talked about him. Your boy, Kadarius Toney, the rapper, Young Joker. First rounder. Elijah Moore from Ole Miss. I have some intel on him. He ran a 4.35. They think he should be really good. I went to Rashad Bateman's pro day. He's from Minnesota. He's going to be a top 100 pick. He was pretty impressive. The guy, Bill Jones, quickly, I want to talk about Terrace Marshall from LSU. Yep. He's kind of getting overlooked, I think, with Jamar Chase, and it was with Justin Jefferson the year that they won the title. But this guy was the top wideout in the country coming out of high school, stayed put in Louisiana. And he was kind of, like I said, that forgotten guy among Jefferson and Chase. And Marshall was right there as well when Joe Burrow and the Tigers won that title in 19. All 3 of those receivers had over 10 touchdowns. Marshall had 13 in 1 year. In this past season, he led him in receiving before he opted out. He's a big dude, 6'2", 205, and he ran a 4.38 at the 40 and had a 39 vertical. So I think Terrace Marshall is a guy that should be talked about more and just part of this really impressive wide receiver group this year. I know you feel a little bit differently as far as deep positions. Which do you think is the deepest this year?
Yeah, and I'm with you on wide receivers, but I think that you see that virtually every year with wide receivers. There's so many good wide receivers. The thing that, and the reason that I thought of the question is it just the position group. I'm going to pick linebacker. You don't normally, and I don't think you normally see the quality of linebackers that we're seeing in this year's class. And linebacker has become, with all the sub packages and so forth, I think a more important position. 10 years ago, take for instance, Sean Lee. He was taken in 2010. He was the 55th player taken in the draft that year. I think there was one linebacker that was taken in the first round that year, and Lee was about the next inside linebacker, either a Mike linebacker or a Will linebacker that were taken. That's not taking into account the 3-4 outside backers. I don't include that. I look at them as edge rushers. Mm-hmm. But when you look at guys who can play the middle, the will, or in sub packages, I mean, just starting with Micah Parsons and his athletic ability. There are some other off the field concerns that might drop him down, we'll see whether the teams have to check that stuff out. But I've talked about Zaven Collins out of Tulsa, how much I like him and his position versatility. Could be an edge rusher as well. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is another first rounder, probably mid first round guy from Notre Dame. But Nick Bolton from Missouri, what a linebacker he is. Okay, the question on him is he a 3-down linebacker in sub packages? How is he defending the pass as far as being able to dissect a run play and close it, reading, reacting, shedding blocks, getting to the point of attack? I mean, Nick Bolton is at the head of the class here. The guy from Kentucky who so many people are talking about is now being a first round draft pick. This guy from an athletic standpoint, he is, he is up there. He's probably not there with Parsons because Parsons is just incredible the way he jumps off the tape. But when you look at Jamin and what he is able to do as far as and where he's come in his career, the improvement and the upside that he has, you talk about the guy from TCU, Grant Wallow, who is the guy who is probably later. Chaz Surratt from North Carolina is another one. There are guys like Jabril Cox from LSU. I'm just filling up my notebook with linebackers here. And, not to say I think there could be 4 that go in the first round, which would be remarkable for the linebacker class. But I think even in the top 50 or 60 picks, I think, and again, the guy from Kentucky, Jamin Davis, is the guy that is climbing as fast as anybody on the charts.
Yep. We talked about him a little bit. He wasn't on my radar at all. And then I was checking Daniel Jeremiah's rankings and he was like 25. I think he went from like almost out of the rankings into 25. And that's what happens when you put up a monster numbers.
Yeah, Jeremiah's got him 24. He's got him the 3rd ranked linebacker, 24. Brugler's got him 36. And again, it's how do you value the linebacker position? How do these guys fit into your scheme? That plays a big factor in it. And I think what's going to be interesting on the linebackers, because there are so many that are a pretty good quality here. Will there be a run on linebackers earlier than usual? Or will teams say, hey, I can wait on the linebacker because there's a bunch of other ones that they have ranked in the top 100?
Yeah, it's interesting draft philosophy. Some teams take linebackers high, like the Cowboys, in recent years with Jalen and Leighton Vander Esch. And then there's other teams like where I am in Philadelphia. They don't even take linebackers in the first 3 rounds. And I think that's a big problem. In Philly, they really talk wide receivers and defensive backs here. But their linebackers have been weak for a couple years now. And that's really been, I think, an issue for their defense. So it's always interesting to see how teams value the linebacker position. And you make a good point with that.
All right, one more compelling question. Give me another compelling question.
Yep, I'm going to take a quick college perspective here for you, Bill Jones. The question is, will we see the ultimate Tide takeover on Thursday, day 1 of the NFL draft? We know Alabama has been the most dominant college football program in the country recently, 6 national titles in their last 12 years. And we're going to see a dominant performance by Alabama players on day 1 of this draft. And it could be historic. According to Daniel Jeremiah, 7 of his top 42 players are from Bama. So we could see as many as 7 first rounders, which would be the most ever selected by one school in the first round. The record is 6. The record is 6 by Miami. That was in 2004. And I was thinking about it. If this happens, they get 6 or 7 first rounders. That would further the statement made by Mac Jones after the national championship game when he said this. The Mac quote here is, Bill Jones, "I think we're the best team to ever play. There's no team that'll ever play an SEC schedule like that again. And I think you have to give credit where credit is due. That's from Mac Jones. He thinks
Where is the credit due?
well, I think it means the credit is due to them for absolutely demolishing everybody.
But wait. Do you have the quote from Joe Burrow from last year about LSU being the greatest team ever assembled?
I don't, but it was very similar to Mac Jones's quote. So here's the deal. So originally, when I heard the quote from Mac, I said, you know what? This guy's crazy. There's no way this Bama team is the greatest ever. But then I did a little research, and he actually may be onto something here. Bama scored 49 points a game, second in the country. They allowed 19 a game. So they outscored their opponents by an average of almost 30 a game. Only one game was decided by 14 or fewer. That was Florida in the SEC title game. How about this, Bill Jones? In their 2 playoff games, they played Ohio State and Notre Dame. Alabama ran 138 plays. 55 of them were for first downs. 40% of their offensive plays in the playoff got them a first down. And they smoked Ohio State and Notre Dame score-wise 83-38. And I thought this was interesting. Bama didn't have more than 1 turnover in any game this season. So this Bama team may be the greatest team of all time. I think they should be in the question, and they should be in the discussion.
So why was then there's so much consternation when it came out that Kyle Shanahan is thinking about taking Mac Jones, the quarterback of that team, with the 3rd pick in the draft?
Well, I think because Mac is surrounded by a ton of amazing players. He might be the worst out of all these top draft picks. So we know Jalen Waddle is going in the 1st round. Devontae Smith is. Patrick Surtain is. Najee Harris, I think we would agree that he's going.
Najee is?
No, I think Najee's
running
going.
Back?
Yeah.
Running back?
I think he's going. I don't think there's any doubt he goes in the 1st round.
Okay.
Mac Jones, we talked about. So that's 5.
Yeah.
Landon Dickerson.
Even with his ACL, apparently he's got a good, clean bill of health. He's coming off the ACL. As you saw him do the somersaults during Mac Jones' interview, then you see that he looks to be coming along well in his rehab. There's 6.
And Christian Barmore, he's 42 in Daniel Jeremiah's rankings. So that's
I got another one.
Who?
How about Alex Leatherwood, left tackle?
That's right. Leatherwood is a possibility. I didn't even include him. Dylan Moses is a highly rated player. I don't think he's a 1st rounder, but he's a good player.
He's another one of those linebackers.
Yep, exactly. So they could have, there are 7 or 8 guys here in the mix that could be 1st rounders. If they get 7 would be the record for most ever. So get ready to hear a lot of Roll Tide on Thursday of the draft.
And they kind of accomplished good things at the college level at Alabama, don't they? The Tide's kind of on a roll, I hear.
Yes, unfortunately. They won like every award. Did you realize that they almost all of their guys won all the awards? They won like the offensive lineman, center.
They did not.
They won
Zaven Collins won all the defensive awards.
They won Devontae won the Heisman. They won a ton of awards.
They didn't win the Lombardi or the Nagurski or the Butkus, which was won by Owusu Koromoa.
Can I say this? It's not fair that one team should have the 2 biggest game breakers in the country. Waddle and Devontae Smith, by far the 2 biggest game breakers in the country, and they were on the same team. And then when you add Najee Harris in the mix, they could have had 3 of the 5 biggest, like most electric playmakers in the country on one team. Insane.
Yep. All right. Well, I think this was a very nice edition with some compelling questions on Jonesing for football. And I can't wait for the next edition when we will talk about.
We're doing Pick Your Player, Bill Jones. We're coming up with a game here. Pick Your Player. We're doing offensive guys. We've got a couple quarterbacks, a couple receivers, a couple offensive linemen. Bill Jones will pick which guy he likes over the other. It'll be compelling. Trust me.
All right. I say we do pick your player offense. And then in the next episode, we do pick your player defense. What do you think of that?
I like where your head's at there. Let's do that. Let me write that down.
All right. See if you can remember that. All right. And we will talk at you next time here on Jonesing for Football.